Welcome to 21st Sports, and we're talking the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars in their Week 4 matchup played October 2nd, 2016, and this one was played across the pond over in the UK. So they played this one in London at Wembley Stadium, and I'll tell you, you gotta wonder if the jet lag was affecting the Colts. Of course, both teams had to travel over the pond, so there's no excuses. The Jaguars, though, are familiar with making this trip, as London has become somewhat of a second home for the Jaguars. There even was talk that maybe they would move over to the UK. That has been a rumor that's been speculating for the last couple years, although I doubt that's going to happen. But in this game, the Jaguars finally get into the win column in 2016, although the Colts almost came back to win this one, but they shouldn't have been in that position to begin with, as it came down to a 4th and half of a yard. But starting off in this game with the scoring, Blake Bortles hit Allen Robinson for a 3-yard touchdown. That put the Jags up 7-0 early. Adam Vinatieri hit a 53-yard field goal to put the Colts on the board, so 7-3 after 1 quarter of play. Then in the second, Vinatieri added his second field goal of the game, a 49-yarder, and it was a 1-point game with the score Jacksonville 7, Indianapolis 6. But then Blake Bortles punches it in with a 1-yard touchdown run to extend Jacksonville's lead to 8 with the score 14-6, and Jason Myers would add a 22-yard field goal on the final play of the first half to make it 17-6. So an 11-point lead for Jacksonville heading into the intermission. Then in the third, Jason Myers hit his second and third field goals of the game respectively, a 46-yarder and a 49-yarder, and it was now 23-6 as the Jaguars just kept putting points on the board. So now in the fourth quarter, just seconds in, the Colts finally get things going. Frank Gore with a 1-yard touchdown run, and it was a 10-point game with the score Jacksonville 23, Indianapolis 13. Then about midway through the fourth, Andrew Luck hooks up with T.Y. Hilton for a 2-yard touchdown, and it was a 3-point game with the score Jacksonville 23, Indianapolis 20. But just 2 minutes later, Blake Bortles hooks up with Allen Hurns for a 42-yard touchdown, and that extended the lead for Jacksonville back to double digits with the score 30-20. Then, with just over 3 minutes left, Andrew Luck airs it out to Philip Dorsett, and he goes 64 yards for the touchdown. And it was again a 3-point game with the score Jacksonville 30, Indianapolis 27. Then, with about a minute and a half left in this game, the Colts had the ball. They had a chance to tie it up. Is there at midfield, they needed less than half of a yard. It was 4th and 1 technically, but it was about a third of a yard is all they needed. Really, in that situation, most teams would just give it to the quarterback sneak. As long as he just extends himself and gets any kind of positive yardage, it would have been a first down. And they had about a minute and a half, so it's not like timeouts where the clock was really a factor there and it prevented them from going for the QB sneak. But instead, on 4th and a third of a yard, not even half of a yard, less than half a yard is what they needed. And what do? They go in the air. You got Frank Gore. Why are you going in the air? Incomplete pass, and they are losers. They fall to 1-3, and the Jacksonville Jaguars hold on to win this one. They hold off the rally as the Colts scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, but it wouldn't be enough to dig them out of the deficit that they had themselves in. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars pick up the W overseas. So they're still winless in the U.S., but they're undefeated this season in the UK. So Jacksonville getting in the win column. Both these teams now 1-3 on the season as these two AFC South rivals went at it. But in this game, Blake Bortles 19 for 33, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. He also had a touchdown rushing and 7 carries and 36 rushing yards for Bortles. The game's leading rusher was T.J. Yeldon, as he had T.J. Yeldon. I almost said T.Y. Hilton. But TJ Yeldon, 14 carries for 71 yards for the Jaguars. Allen Robinson, 5 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown. Allen Hurns, 2 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. And Yeldon with 4 receptions for 46 yards receiving to go along with his 71 yards rushing, which gave him 117 yards on the day for TJ Yeldon. And Andrew Luck was 27 for 42, 234 passing yards. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Frank Gore, 16 carries for 68 yards and a touchdown. Luck also had 23 yards on the ground off of 4 carries. Philip Dorsett, 1 reception for 64 yards. That was a touchdown. That was his only catch of the game, and he was the leading receiver in the game with that 1 catch. But T.Y. Hilton had 7 catches for just 42 yards and a touchdown as well. And we look at the defense for Jacksonville. Posluszny with 1.5 sacks. Unduku, which I'm sure I'm butchering his name and I do apologize, but he had a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble. Big game for him. Johnson with a half sack. Marks with a sack. Smith with a sack. And Alualu with a sack as well for Jacksonville. And for Indianapolis, Mike Adams with a forced fumble. Ayers had a sack. Walden had a sack as well. And Kerr and Ridgeway each had a half sack. Both teams had 23 first downs. On third down, the Colts were 9 for 17, 52% conversion rate. But they were 0 for 2 on fourth down, especially that fourth down at the end, which really cost them, as they did have a chance to tie it and push it to overtime. But for the Jacksonville Jaguars on third down, they were 3 for 11, 27%, as they had trouble moving the chains on third down. But they did convert their one and only attempt at a fourth down. And then we look at the penalties in this game, quite a few, as the Jaguars, 11 penalties for 145 yards, and they still managed to come away with the victory. But the Colts, just 7 penalties for 78 yards, which is quite a bit as well, but not quite as much as the Jags. Usually you get that many penalties, you're not going to win, but they still managed to pull it off. You look at the red zone, 2 for 2 for Indianapolis, 100%, 2 for 3 for Jacksonville, 66%. And the Colts actually had the time of possession, 32 minutes, 39 seconds versus 27 minutes, 21 seconds for Jacksonville. So Jacksonville getting out to that early lead, and really it was that pass rush really putting Andrew Luck under pressure all game long as they sacked him over and over again. They just kept bringing that pressure as they really were coming at him really strong in this game, as they ended up with 6 sacks for the Jaguars in this one. So 6 sacks combined for the defense, putting the pressure on Andrew Luck, and they pull it off. Bortles combined for 3 touchdowns, 2 through the air, 1 on the ground. And the Colts just making mistakes, even though the Jaguars are making some mistakes too, but the Colts just, they really did not get things into the gear until late in the game, which that tends to be a problem that the Colts have, is that a lot of times it seems like they don't start playing until the second half starts, and you cannot allow yourself to get in that kind of hole where, you know, really in this game it wasn't until the fourth quarter that they really got it moving. And this is a trend I've seen over the last couple years with the Colts and with Luck. Seems like they don't really start moving the chains and getting yards and getting touchdowns and scores until the fourth quarter or late in the game, and you can't always come back. You gotta, start from the start of the game, and you gotta play a full 60. You can't just play half a game and expect to come away with a W. The Jaguars, they played the full 60. I mean, both teams did technically, but they were out there clawing and fighting, and they got the win. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Which plays and performances stuck out to you? Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you had a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.